Where were royal babies buried? In the grand palaces of Europe, every royal birth was celebrated with dazzling ceremonies. Trumpets would sound, bells would ring, and entire kingdoms rejoiced at the arrival of an heir. But not every royal child lived to wear the crown. Behind the glittering pageantry lay a far quieter reality. Many infants and young princes and princesses never reached adulthood, and when their short lives ended, their burials carried just as much symbolism as their births. Where were these royal children laid to rest? And why were some hidden away while others were honored with magnificent tombs? For centuries, childhood itself was precarious. Even in royal households, with the best physicians and access to resources, infant mortality was tragically common. Smallpox, plague, pneumonia, and countless other illnesses claimed countless young lives. When these royal children died, their burials had to strike a delicate balance, private grief for the family, but also public ceremony for the dynasty. In medieval and early modern Europe, burial sites reflected both religious devotion and dynastic pride. Cathedrals, abbeys, and royal chapels became resting places not only for kings and queens, but also for the children who never grew old enough to rule. Their tombs, though often smaller, carried a heavy symbolism, reminders of mortality, of fragile succession, and of the dynasty's hope for divine protection. In England, few places hold more royal history than Westminster Abbey. Kings and queens lie here, but so do princes and princesses who never reached the throne. Take the short life of Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, the only surviving child of Princess Anne, later Queen Anne. Born in 1689, he was England's great hope, the Protestant heir meant to secure the future of the monarchy. But at just 11 years old, he died suddenly. His loss was devastating, and with no heir, the crown passed to distant relatives in Hanover. William was buried with ceremony in Westminster Abbey, his tomb marking not only a family tragedy, but also a turning point in British history. He was not alone. Many royal infants and children found their resting place here, often inside chapels or beneath intricately carved effigies. To visitors today, these tombs may appear modest compared to those of monarchs, but to contemporaries, they were stark reminders of how fragile royal succession could be. Across the Channel, France had its own great royal necropolis, the Basilica of Saint Denis, just outside Paris. For centuries, it was the traditional resting place of French kings, queens, and their children. Among those interred were the young children of Louis XV and Louis XVI, some of whom died before their first birthdays. In these marble halls, the voices of lost heirs were silenced forever, yet their presence reinforced the sanctity of the monarchy. Even the smallest tomb bore political weight, showing that every royal life, no matter how brief, was woven into the destiny of France. But tragedy also struck during the French Revolution, when royal graves were desecrated. Tombs of kings, queens, and children alike were opened, their remains scattered. Only later, in the 19th century, were efforts made to restore dignity to Saint Denis. Today, the abbey stands not just as a resting place, but as a testament to both the grandeur and the vulnerability of royal bloodlines. In Austria, the Habsburg dynasty built a tradition of laying their dead to rest in the imperial crypt of Vienna, beneath the Capuchin church. Here lie emperors and empresses, but also their children, many of whom never survived infancy. The Habsburgs, known for their sprawling empire and political marriages, faced generations of loss. Marble sarcophagi and ornate caskets hold not just the rulers of Austria, but also tiny coffins, reminders that even the most powerful family in Europe could not escape the universal pain of losing a child. Walking through the crypt today, one cannot help but notice how the grandeur of emperors' tombs contrasts with the smaller, simpler coffins of children. Yet together, they tell one continuous story of dynasty and devotion. In Spain, the royal monastery of El Escorial became the burial place of kings, queens, and princes. Within its pantheon of the princes, the children of Spain's monarchy were interred. Their presence there reflected not only dynastic continuity, but also Spain's strong Catholic devotion, as each burial was steeped in ritual and faith. Portugal, too, followed similar traditions, with royal children buried in monasteries and convents that symbolized both their family's piety and their nation's history. Elsewhere across Europe, whether in Poland's Wall Cathedral or Russia's Peter and Paul Fortress, the pattern repeated: royal children resting alongside their families, their short lives woven into the grand narrative of kings and empires. Why were so many royal children buried in such prominent places? Part of the reason was dynastic continuity. Even a child who never ruled was still part of the royal bloodline. Their tombs reminded subjects that the dynasty remained sacred, blessed, and eternal. At the same time, these burials carried deep religious meaning. In an age when infant mortality was high, the church taught that these young souls were especially close to God. To bury them in cathedrals and abbeys was not just a matter of prestige, but also an act of faith, a prayer that their short lives would find eternal grace. And yet, not all were honored so openly. Some royal children, especially those born illegitimately or who died in politically sensitive times, were buried quietly, their memory overshadowed by dynastic struggles. Their absence from great monuments is as telling as the presence of others. Today, as visitors wander through Westminster Abbey, St. Denis, Vienna, or El Escorial, they encounter not only the grand tombs of kings and queens, but also the small sarcophagi of children. These monuments remind us that royalty did not shield families from heartbreak. Dynasties celebrated their heirs with pageantry, but they also mourned them in silence. Every tiny coffin, every modest tomb, speaks of both personal grief and national consequence. Behind every crown, there was once a cradle, and sometimes, tragically, that cradle was left empty far too soon. If you found this glimpse into royal history fascinating, don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of the past. And share your thoughts below. Which royal burial surprised you the most?